God's chosen ones. People fear you because heaven fights for you. They didn't just talk behind your back. They strategized. They whispered in rooms your feet never entered, plotting how to dim a light they never gave you. But here's what they didn't know. When God marks a soul, no smear campaign, no fake smile, no betrayal can cancel the anointing. They thought you were just too sensitive, too quiet, too different. But what they called weakness was spiritual surveillance. Your silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. And now, the same ones who tried to write your ending are watching a resurrection they can't explain. If this feels like your story, drop 777 in the comments. That's not just a number. It's heaven whispering back. You were right to trust the silence. You were right to stay soft. You were chosen. They laughed when you walked away. They clapped when others turned against you. And when you needed them most, they vanished like smoke. Not because you were broken, but because your presence exposed what they were trying so hard to hide. They said you were imagining things. Too deep, too intense. Said you always read too much into stuff. But deep down, they were terrified that you were reading them perfectly. Because when a chosen one walks in, the masks get heavy, the smiles start shaking, and the room starts to feel too small for the truth you carry. Some of you have been asking, why do people pull away when I say nothing wrong? Why do I feel the tension before I even speak? That's not paranoia, that's discernment. You were never designed to fit in. You were designed to pierce through. So if you felt the shift, the distance, the weird stares, the fake laughter that suddenly fades when you show up, you're not crazy. You're not too much. You're just surrounded by people who sense what they can't explain. They know something is different about you, not because of what you do, but because of what walks in with you. Divine backup, unshakable peace, God's presence that makes the fake scatter. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will confirm what your soul has been whispering for years. You weren't abandoned. You were protected. You weren't rejected. You were set apart. If you're still here, it's not by chance. This message has been circling the heavens, waiting to find you. Because when you understand why they feared you, you'll finally understand why you were chosen. Part 1. Your aura shakes rooms before you speak. They didn't flinch because you said something wrong. They flinched because you didn't say anything at all. From the moment your feet cross the threshold, the air changes, like thunderclouds forming on a sunny day. Not because you bring chaos, but because you carry clarity, and clarity shakes what's pretending to be real. You never needed to raise your voice. You never needed to explain your presence. Your energy walked in first and the masks trembled. Some call it intimidation, but what they really mean is exposure. Because when you show up with peace they can't perform. It reveals the panic in their spirit. Your silence. It doesn't just interrupt, it announces. They knew you were different before they knew your name. You didn't walk in looking for attention, but attention snapped to you like metal to a magnet. Not because of looks, but because of alignment. They don't understand why you feel like a mirror. But deep down, they know. Mirrors don't lie, and your life reflects what they've buried. That's why they talk behind your back. Why they side-eye your calm. Why they smile tight and move funny. Because you're not just a person. You're a spiritual atmosphere they can't manipulate. You've seen it happen. You enter a space and conversations pause. People shift. Jokes dry up. They say, "Oh, you're so quiet." But what they really mean is, why does my soul feel exposed around you? You're not imagining this. Chosen one, your aura shakes rooms before you speak. Because you carry a frequency that heaven has tuned. And hell can't decode. They whisper that you're too much. But they still can't stop watching. Why? Because even in silence, your energy speaks prophecy. Even in stillness, your presence breaks illusions. Even in shadowed rooms, your light whispers judgment. You don't need to flex. You don't need to explain. You just stand there and the lies start to crumble under their own weight. Because God gave you a glow that convicts without a sermon. You are not intimidating. They are intimidated. You are not too much. They are just unprepared for truth. You didn't change the room. The room revealed itself. They whisper about you because your walk screams alignment. They didn't fear you. They feared what walked in with you. Think back to when someone avoided eye contact for no reason, to when a friend group shifted the moment you shared a truth, to the unease they couldn't explain, even though you hadn't said a single word. Now ask yourself, was that rejection or was it recognition? What if the tension you feel around certain people is just their spirit panicking in the presence of your truth? Your aura is not decoration, it's declaration. A sign that you were sent. A sign that you are sealed. A sign that what covers you cannot be copied. When you realize that you stop shrinking, you stop explaining, you stop making yourself small so others can stay in the dark. Because the rooms you enter, they already knew you were coming. Not because of your resume, but because your spirit arrived before your name was ever spoken. You shake rooms not by shouting, but by being too aligned to fake it. And chosen one, that's a power no enemy, no hater, and no counterfeit can ever replicate. Part 2. They whisper impossible until you survive it. They didn't say it to your face, but you felt it in their silence, in their sideways glances, in the way they changed the subject when your name came up. They didn't think you'd make it, and not because your battle was too hard, but because they were afraid of what your comeback would prove. They whispered, impossible, but God whispered, watch this. You lost the job, got betrayed by the one you trusted, sat alone while others built lives you only prayed for, and still, you rose, quietly, without applause, without backup. You walked through things that would have broken them, and came out glowing. They don't talk about that part. They only see the current glow. They missed the chapter where you prayed through tears that never made it to your voice. They missed the war you fought just to get out of bed. But God didn't miss it. Heaven recorded it. And now, your survival is on display. You became what they couldn't explain. And now, they're quiet, not out of peace, but out of confusion. Because nothing they spoke over you came to pass. And every plan to break you only built you.
Oh, they didn't believe in your fall.
They feared your rise. You didn't just bounce back, you made the fire your altar. They wanted you hollow, but God made you whole. They called it impossible until you walked through it. You didn't survive by chance. You survived by covenant. They thought the heartbreak would undo you, that the financial collapse would bury your vision, that the silence of unanswered prayers would suffocate your faith. But instead, you became the evidence. The storm they thought would sink you became the platform God used to promote you. Now they study your moves like a mystery. They wonder, how are they still standing? How are they smiling with so little support? How are they glowing after all that grief? But what they don't know is this. Your glow came from the fire, not from a shortcut, not from a connection, from the ashes of everything that tried and failed to destroy you. There were nights you told no one about, nights you whispered, God, if you don't help me, I won't make it. And the only response was silence. Until the silence started to shift things. He didn't just pull you through, he pulled the mask off the ones who doubted you. What if their disbelief wasn't just ignorance, but spiritual confirmation of your anointing? They didn't just hope you'd fall. Some of them were watching, waiting for the crack, not because they hated you, but because your rise would make them face the truth. That divine favor existed, counts, and you're covered by it. Now that you've risen, they're retreating. Why? Because your survival shattered their illusion of control. Because when you win without playing dirty, every lie they told becomes irrelevant. This wasn't luck. This was strategy divine, deliberate, delayed on purpose so it could happen in public. They laughed in group chats. Now they study in silence. They mocked your pain. Now they call it resilience. They whispered impossible. Now they whisper your name with caution. You were never meant to prove them wrong. You were built to prove God right. You didn't just survive the fire, you became the light source for those still trapped in it. Let them talk. Let them question. Because your elevation is the answer. And the best part, you didn't have to fight dirty. You just had to outlast. Part 3. Thick skin. Cosmic backbone. They expected a shell of you. They were waiting for bitterness to bloom. After what they did, after what they said. They thought you'd walk in cracked, bitter, and done. But chosen one, you didn't just walk back in. You floated in with a glow they couldn't explain. Because when you're chosen, you don't just build walls. You grow wings. They hit you with their hardest. But your soul, reinforced by heaven. Your skin, weathered by spiritual warfare. Your heart, still soft but now wrapped in divine armor. They called it toughness, but this isn't worldly grit. This is a cosmic resilience, an internal knowing that nothing formed against you will prosper. Because it already didn't. You didn't get this strength from YouTube quotes or therapy reels. You got it in the wilderness where no one clapped, where no one helped, where it was just you and God and the decision to not fold. Either I survive this or I become it. And you chose survival. You weren't made to be soft for people who sharpen knives in secret. They threw fire. You built a furnace. What broke them birthed you. This strength wasn't taught. It was transferred. You didn't toughen up to fit in. You toughened up to fulfill. Let's be honest, some of them kept testing you, just to find the breaking point you no longer have. They poked. They pulled back love. They withheld support. And still you didn't bend. You didn't flinch. Not because it didn't hurt, but because your spine isn't built on ego anymore. It's built on alignment. And that's what makes you dangerous. Because when you're backed by the divine, you become unmovable, unexplainable, unstoppable. There were nights your chest felt like it was caving in, when even breathing felt like betrayal. And yet you kept showing up, not to be seen, but to finish what you were sent here to do. You didn't rise to make a statement. You rose because your purpose was louder than their plot. They don't understand how you got sharper after pain, how your spirit got louder in isolation, how you didn't turn bitter. You turned brighter. That's why they whisper about you. That's why they flinch when you walk in whole. Because in their world, pain weakens. But in your world, pain proves, what if the strength you carry now is the very reason God let the fire touch you, but not consume you? They were hoping for ruins, but now they're standing in front of a fortress. The same bricks they threw at you, you stacked into pillars. The same shade they cast, you turned into shelter for others. That's not toughness. That's divine design. And now you walk different, not because you're healed, but because you're holy. Because your survival came with instruction, and your comeback came with armor. They're not staring because of how you look. They're staring because you no longer bleed where they cut you. You didn't just get through it. You grew teeth. You grew wings. You grew roots. And now they're shaking because they know they can't shake you. So let them wonder, let them test, let them try again. Because what broke them built you. And every blow only proved this truth. You're not soft. You're sacred. And the ones who underestimated your stillness, they're now facing the thunder of your return. Part 4. Walking proof of what they deny. You walk in and they scoff. You speak your truth and they shift. They roll their eyes, but keep watching. They laugh, but they quote you later. They say it's just luck. They say you're trying too hard. But here's the thing they'll never admit. You are the living proof of everything they said couldn't happen. You weren't supposed to rise. Not like this. Not from that much pain. And not without help. Not without bitterness. They called it fantasy. They mocked alignment. They said manifestation was delusion, energy. vibes, purpose, until you became the contradiction they couldn't explain. They denied miracles until you became one. You didn't force the glow, you became the glow. They said it's impossible, then watched you live it. You're not lucky, you're assigned. You didn't just walk out, you walked out glowing with confirmation. They can't wrap their logic around your elevation. How did the one they counted out become the light in every room? Because here's the truth they buried. What you carry can't be replicated because it wasn't man-given. You're not impressive because of followers. You're magnetic because of frequency. You're not untouchable because of status. You're untouchable because of source. They tried everything to stop your rise. Spoke against you. Gossiped in shadows. Even prayed against you and called it discernment. But now, you're still rising. Still glowing. Still unbothered. And it's not just your comeback they fear. It's what it confirms. You didn't get here clean. You cried through layers of betrayal. You stayed silent while they rewrote your story. You held back when you could have exposed them all, but you didn't need a mic. You had evidence. Now the very thing they mocked is manifesting. The spiritual nonsense they laughed at is why nothing they planned could touch you. The aura they said was too much is now your divine signature. What if your existence is proof that unseen forces do protect the pure in heart? What if you're not different? You're just undeniable. That's why they act strange. That's why they create distance. That's why they group up. Because your alignment exposes their excuses. You became everything they told the world couldn't exist. You healed without closure. You succeeded without approval. You glowed without revenge. They said, you're delusional. You're imagining things. You're too deep. But now, they're copying your stillness, quoting your wisdom, wearing your peace like it was theirs. But you can't fake frequency, and you can't borrow favor. You didn't force elevation, you aligned with it. You didn't chase platforms, you became one. You didn't scream to be seen, God made you undeniable. And the ones who doubted you, they're quiet now, not out of peace, but out of panic. Because when you rise by force, you can be pushed. But when you rise by divine assignment, you become irreplaceable. Let them wonder, let them call it mystery. Because the truth is, chosen one, you are the walking proof of everything the world tried to deny. You are the miracle in human skin, the prophecy dressed in resilience, the message that never needed a pulpit because your life preached first. Part 5. Calm in chaos. Power in silence. They thought you were weak because you didn't clap back, didn't drag their name, didn't post receipts. But what they didn't know was this. Your silence wasn't surrender. It was surveillance. It was strategy. It was sacred. They expected rage, expected tears, expected a breakdown. But what they got was stillness. And that was the loudest thing you ever said. You didn't need fireworks. You became the thunder they never heard coming. You see, people who thrive on chaos expect everyone else to play their game. But when you refused, when you stayed in your lane calm, grounded, focused, you became the mirror to their madness. And it scared them more than any confrontation ever could. Stillness is the language of the undefeated. They wanted you loud. You gave them divine quiet. You didn't fold in the fire, you found your form in it. Silence is where real power reveals itself. You didn't bite back, you built. They kept poking, waiting for you to break, throwing shade, hoping you'd respond. But all you did was rise, in silence, in peace, in alignment. You smiled when they expected bitterness. You walked tall when they whispered behind closed doors. You didn't even correct the lies, because you understood. The truth doesn't need a press conference. It just needs time. Some of your deepest revenge came through your refusal to explain yourself. They spun stories. They predicted your collapse. They thought they won when you went quiet. But God was rearranging everything while you healed. And now, they're unraveling in real time. trying to undo what your calm already conquered. You don't chase narratives. You rewrite them silently. They ask, how are you still standing? How are you still glowing? How did nothing take you out? Because your foundation wasn't built on ego. It was built on revelation, on resilience, on a whispered yes when no one else believed in you. What if your stillness was the sword? What if your refusal to retaliate was heaven's strategy all along? They thought your peace meant they won, but what it really meant was that God was watching, and heaven doesn't respond with noise. It responds with reversals. Now they're spinning, trying to fix the image they painted of you, while you walk away untouched, because you didn't just survive the chaos. You outlived it. You outgrew it. You outshined it. You didn't need to raise your voice. You were the voice. Your stillness was a sentence. Your calm, a crown. They still don't understand how you didn't clap back, how you didn't curse them, didn't stoop. But you weren't called to fight dirty. You were called to stand divine. And when you move like that, every room you enter becomes sacred ground. Because calm isn't emptiness. It's command, and silence isn't absence. It's alignment with the one who fights for you. Let them talk. Let them twist. Let them tremble. You already won. Not by proving anything. Not by defending yourself, but by refusing to break character when the chaos called you by name. Chosen one. Your silence shook them because it was filled with God. You were seen. You were chosen. Shh. Did you feel that stillness in your chest, that pull in your spirit that says, this was for me? It was. It always was. You didn't imagine the rejection. You didn't make up the tension. You weren't crazy for feeling different since childhood. You were marked, not for popularity, not for ease, but for purpose, and everything you've survived. It wasn't punishment. It was proof. Proof that your silence carried more fire than their noise. Proof that your peace made demons squirm. Proof that your light didn't ask for permission, it just arrived. They didn't fear your personality. They feared your presence. The way you walked in carrying something ancient, something divine. They didn't try to break you for fun. They tried to break you because they sensed who you really are. And that terrified them. But here's what matters most. They didn't stop you. Not the sabotage. Not the silence. Not the season where even you weren't sure you'd make it out. Because you did, and you didn't come out bitter. You came out brighter. You didn't just heal, you rose. You didn't just survive, you shifted dimensions. You didn't just make it through. You proved that God was with you the whole time. So take a breath, let it all sink in, because this isn't just a video. This is confirmation. You didn't lose your circle, you were elevated out of the noise. You didn't lose your peace, you weaponized it. You didn't lose your voice, you learned how to speak without speaking. Chosen one, you are not here by accident. You didn't press play by mistake. You've been asking for a sign, and this is it. This is your 777 moment. This is heaven saying, I saw what they did. I heard what they said. I felt your loneliness, and I never left you. You were set apart. You were defended in silence. You were built different because you were built by design. If this message pierced something in your spirit, drop 7 in the comments to mark your confirmation. Let the universe know I survived. I'm rising, and I now remember who I am. Share this video with another chosen one, the quiet soul who's been carrying weight alone and needs to breathe again. Like, subscribe, and let this light echo forward, because when one chosen one rises, we all do.